So yeah, welcome back to the U&E Podcast. This time I've got Joel Sales with me, a guy that I met close on 3 years ago in May. He's just a completely inspiring guy who's got a great testimony, and you're really going to feel connected to this podcast in ways that maybe you haven't in others, I think. So yeah, Joel, it's good to have you, mate.
It's a treat to be here, my friend.
Thank you. I mean, first off, how are you?
I'm alright, thanks.
You good?
We had a week off this last week. Got away for a few days.
Did you go anywhere nice?
We went to Stratford upon Avon.
That's not a bad shout.
Which was fun for a few days, and then now we're ready for the new term. Here we go.
We're back. So I mean, I'm going to start with all the stuff that I always start with, which is how and when did you come to faith?
Great. Yeah, so actually looking back, I count it a real privilege. I grew up in a Christian home, and so actually I can't remember, a time where I didn't know that God was my Father who loved me, that Jesus died for me, and that the Holy Spirit lives with me. That's actually been something I've always known. And like when I look at like our church, at your church, all the children there, that's my prayer for these kids. Actually, they always know God who's real and with them and loves them. And then through my childhood and teenage years, there were various moments and tests where I found actually this is true. Dad left our family for a while. He came back. So Dad died of cancer when I was 14. And these kind of moments, as well as all the usual stuff for teenagers growing up, working out who you are as a young man. And through that, I found actually that God really is with me. He really is faithful. Like, this isn't just a nice idea that people talk about. It's real. I can have a relationship with God, and He really is everything.
I mean, and that's the one thing I love about you, your enthusiasm for God. Like, because you're always at 100 for God, aren't you? Like, you're always at 100 for God, which is, when I first met you, saying that, like, at first I was like, there's no way it's like this, 24/7. And then obviously I've got to that, I'm 3 years on, and you are like that, 24/7, you're always at 100 for God.
Yeah, it's God or bust. Like, what else have we got? This is, but no, I'm utterly convinced. I'm utterly convinced, that Jesus is good news for everyone. I don't know who a whole bunch of people listen to this podcast because you're loved by a whole bunch of people, But for anyone, whatever your story, whatever your background, whatever your way of life, Jesus is good news for everyone, and I emphatically believe that.
Yeah, and I mean, and it helps people as well, people like me, to get into it, because I mean, I'm not this enthusiastic, but you bring it out in me that little bit more. I mean, I'm pretty low energy and pretty blasé. I'm pretty blasé, like, I'm a Christian. Whereas you'll get, even someone like me who's pretty quiet about it, in like church, you can even get me picked up a little bit.
You did pretty amazing, Dino. I've seen you inviting all your friends and family along to Alpha. I've seen you sharing stories. I've seen. We've talked about at the moment. I've seen how your Facebook output has changed. You inspire me in lots of ways, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, and this is something that I like actually about knowing you for the last 3 years. We can call it privilege, whatever you want. I think it's a little bit of privilege. If I was in your position, I would like it. You've literally seen me come off the street and to now running this podcast, and then obviously the other things I want to do, the 100 charities I want to run. I just want 100. That's, you know what I mean? No more, no less. Don't know where the hundreds come from. How viable it's going to be, I don't know.
Yeah, no, Dino, absolute privilege. Like, I came to Swindon, felt God say this is a place, literally for people just like you, and couldn't be just prouder and just chuffed with you and the choices you're making and how you're pushing into God when things are hard. And no, absolutely, like when we talk about our sense of vision for Patton Church, for our church, one of the scriptures we talk about in the Bible is Isaiah chapter 61, where this is in the Old Testament, where Isaiah is prophesying about rebuilding their city, rebuilding Jerusalem, and it talks about all the people on the outside, how they're going to be restored. And it says, Isaiah 61 verse 4, it says they'll rebuild the city, they'll restore the ruins. And basically it's talking about people who are outside, who are feeling discouraged, who weren't connecting with the Christian community, they find family, and then people like you, Dino, lead. They start the podcasts, they start the charities, they share faith with their friends and family, and that's been so much a part of our kind of heart and vision. And so absolutely huge privilege to sit back and watch what Jesus has done in your life.
It's also nice for me because it shows your teachings on some, do you know what I mean? It shows the reflected teachings that you've taught me. Obviously I'm not part of Pattern anymore. Well, that's technically not true. I am.
It's one family.
Obviously, you know, we're in the same family. So, but you know, a lot of my teachings, I always describe myself as an infant. When I come to church, I was like a toddler. So everything I was being taught was like being a toddler again. That I'm only being taught. I can only know what I'm being taught. And I always say that it's so fragile at the beginning, isn't it? You've really got to nurture new Christians like a toddler.
Yeah.
You've got to. Because otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah, and now we're at the stage, you know, where you've learned to kind of feed yourself as well. Obviously, you get teaching from church, but you're looking at other podcasts. You've learned to read the Bible for yourself. Yeah. You've got your own prayer life, and now you're doing the same. Now you're encouraging other people, and you're helping other people on their way, and you're like known locally for this person with a growing faith.
I don't personally become that great. I jokingly say I'm great and I'm the Pattern's favourite. As I always do when I come in, I always tell people I'm your favourite. But I don't honestly truly believe that deep down, I know I'm bad. Well, not bad, but I know that I'm not good enough. But equally, I've come to the conclusion that you're not good enough either.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That for so long I based my own Christian abilities on you, but in the last year or so, I started to look at it and go, actually, Joel's not good enough, Tom's not good enough,
That's right.
Paul's not good enough.
That's right, Mother Teresa's not good enough, not a single person. Everyone needs Jesus. Yeah.
I mean, so for me, that's definitely the thing. I think for new Christians coming in, don't idolize, don't put your sort of, what's the word I'm trying to use here? It's, don't
like compare yourself.
Don't image yourself
with your podcast with Matt Lane. You talked about this. Like, don't compare yourself to other people. Fix your eyes on Jesus. And he's the one we're following. And we're all doing it together. It's not like it's me versus you.
No,
it's us together trying to follow Jesus.
And that's exactly it. Don't put your image onto other people. You know, we'll use other people's images because it won't work.
But people say comparison is the thief of joy. But actually, like, stay in your lane. Do your thing, one step at a time. Actually, I'm doing better than I was last year. Let's celebrate that. Jesus is working on me bit by bit.
Karen Reeder said this at church on Sunday, and it was really, really amazing. We were talking about, she was on about the birds and like stuff singing in the garden. I can't exactly remember what word she was on about, but she was on about how the birds sing, but they don't make the sound of a donkey, for instance. They make their own sounds.
Yes, Dino.
That was Karen when she was talking about it the other day, yesterday in fact. It really resonated. That I'm not Joel. I'm not Paul, I'm Dino, and you know, I might worship slightly different. That doesn't make it wrong. As long as it's done with the will of God. No,
imagine you trying to be a Paul, or trying to be a Matt Lane, or trying to be a Kenny. It's like what we don't need is another bad copy of one of those people.
Exactly.
What we need is Dino, full of the Holy Spirit, following Jesus, living out his calling. And if we all do that, gosh, imagine what we might see.
It is exactly that, and it means, like, you know, the encouragement. You know, after we were talking a little bit about the podcast about King David. He's lost, you know, we were saying he's lost his men, he's lost his soldiers, he's lost the women in his life, he's lost his mates, and there he is, a king, on his own. You know, God can't encourage him, his mum can't encourage him, his dad, his mum, his friend, nobody can encourage him. He needs to get off his backside now and encourage himself again. And
encourage himself in the Lord.
And I think we've always, every single one of us, at some point in our life, are going to have to encourage ourselves. I mean, I know there are moments in your life where you've had to encourage yourself, knowing your story. You know, I don't know how much you want to talk about that.
Not happy to share any part of my story, but it's interesting. Like, but actually, I mean, with my story, it's not actually like the dramatic. It's not the kind of cancer moments. So we talked about Dad. My wife also had cancer. I mean, we're 10 years on, and she's actually in great shape now. there were those sort of low life moments, like what's going on, but it's almost like, it's actually more like, what about when things are tough at work, or like people that you care about are misunderstanding you, or those kind of moments. In those places, you think, oh gosh, I'm here trying to do something, but it's not going as I hoped, or people aren't grasping what I'm trying to do, or what I'm about. It's those moments that I find really quite discouraging, and it's I mean, a bit like David, when everyone around him, even though he was trying his best to lead the way God wanted him to lead, even his closest followers turned against him, and he encouraged himself in the Lord. I mean, it is that constant thing that God is with you. And it's funny, I've started just this last year. I had some counselling just because I was just trying to work out on my own kind of mental health, and my brilliant counsellor, he finally got me journaling. Have you done that ever, journaling?
No.
I'd never done it before, and I found it so helpful, because actually, like, when you think something's going terribly, like, you can just, it's so easy in your head to think, this is going terribly, everything's going terribly, I'm terrible, I'm failing at this. When actually, if you break it down, it's rarely quite that dramatic. And what I find when I journal, I have to write down, okay, when I say this is going terribly, what do I mean? Okay, well, that bit's not going as I hoped. But then actually, often, I find my inner critic, I find that the voices of me sometimes is like the harshest and the most extreme. But actually, when I break it down, you realize, okay, well, that part of it is not true. Like, actually, it's not all bad. There's some good things happening here. Actually, not everyone misunderstands me. It's only a few. Actually, there are signs of hope. And I found with journaling, I can break it down, and then there are some bits I still need to bring to God and say, okay, God, well, this bit isn't going as I hoped. I have made some mistakes here. I've let some people down. God, will you come and help me with that? But in the midst of that, I'm still called to be here. I'm still in the right place. I'm still going to follow God in this, even when it hurts. And there's something about saying, actually, okay, what's actually true here? And then those bits, let's bring the true ones to God, as painful as they are, and together say, God, come on, let's go somewhere with this. I mean, the other thing I find so helpful is always trying to flip to gratitude. We talked a moment ago, if comparison is the thief of joy, then gratitude is the key to contentment. And it's so easy, you know, to get up in the morning and just think, oh gosh, this is hard, that's bad, in this way my life's worse than that person, if only I had what they had. It's so easy to slip into that. But what if you flip it round and say, oh gosh, thank you, God, for your love for me. Thank you that I know you and I'm forgiven. Thank you that I've got a sense of your calling in my life. Thank you that actually today, when you look at me, you don't see Joel and all his rubbish and his mistakes and his sin. You see Jesus. Thank you for my job. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my home. Thank you for the options I have. Thank you for my friends and people in my life. Thank you for what you've done this week and last week. And suddenly, there's been a shift, hasn't there? Suddenly, I'm one hand at a time, clawing myself out of the pit and saying, oh yeah, no, God is still faithful, even when this is hard. God's still with me, even when I'm feeling discouraged. And God's still with me, even when I have messed the whole thing up. Which sometimes I do that too.
Me too. But you're right. When you think about all the things the gratitude that you have, you know, I'm with you, you know. It's now I sit there and think, thank you for this, thank you for that. You know, it's because when you stop and you think about all the things you don't have, you're never going to be happy. You know, I'm just sort of echoing what you said. You're never going to be happy, and I think we live in such a materialistic world where if you haven't got the newest phone, you know, it's the end of the world. And the reality is, we miss so much. I think I read something on Facebook the other day. It was at a Tyson Fury fight. Some guy was watching it, and everybody else had their phone out. And they said, God, that man's never going to watch that fight again. The reality is, he's watching. Do you know what I mean? He's
Yeah,
there,
I'm
he's
totally with you. I'm totally with you.
They're watching it through a screen.
Yeah.
Still, they might be at the fight, but they're still watching it through a screen.
Yeah. No.
You know.
It's Jim Carrey, who I love. Have you watched the Sonic movies yet, do you know?
No, Lewis went to cinema
last week. I watched the second one. The first one was great fun. Anyway, Jim Carrey, he said a while back, I wish everyone could get everything they want and be rich and famous, because then they'll realise that actually it doesn't satisfy.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to think, if only I had more stuff or more comfort or something. But no, it's actually like, if you can't find joy and contentment with where you are now, then changing the amount of stuff. Because actually, you and I mean, you compare us to 90% of the planet, then we sit in immense material privilege.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, right now we look at our brothers and sisters in Ukraine and think, gosh, like people are losing homes and everything, and we sit in this place of privilege, like. And it's not always helpful to compare yourself to a war zone, but there is a thing, gosh, like, I have got things to be thankful for today. I've got things to be thankful for. So what if I lent into that? Yeah. What if it's a funny thing, but people often when people have birthdays, they're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to celebrate because I'm getting older.
Yeah.
We've flipped that around in our house. So I mentioned Kath's cancer. So she was a few weeks after her 29th birthday, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, which you just don't expect. You think cancer's for old people. Yeah. And for those first few days, particularly when we hadn't found out how far it spread, we were waiting for biopsy results, and it was like, gosh, is she even going to see her 30th birthday? Like, our eldest son was only a few weeks old at the time. We're like, gosh, is he even going to have memories of his mum? And now, amazingly, all the treatment went well, and the grace of God, she's strong and alive, and we're 10 years on. But we celebrate every birthday, and it's not, we're not afraid of death. We're looking forward to heaven. It's going to be wonderful. Yeah. But we got some stuff to do here, and actually, like, next time you have a birthday, you're turning 30 next year. Flipping, come on, this is another year of life that God's given me. This is another chance to be with people and serve Him and be alive, like. I know there might be people listening along who are turning 40, 50, 60, 70. It's a gift. Every year's a gift. So it's funny. Like, people ask me, my hair's going grey these days. Do you know?
No, you've got grey in the beard.
I've got a very grey beard.
Yeah, but I'm taking great privilege out of that.
And people are like, you're gonna dye your hair. I was like, you know what? Actually, like, I'm just gonna embrace every year that God gives me, because it's a gift.
Yeah. By the way, like I said, I'm taking great joy and comfort out of the fact you're going grey, because if anyone doesn't know Joel's like, what are you, 34?
36.
36. So Joel's like 36, but you look at him and you think, God, that's a tall teenager. Like, so, you know what I mean? Like,
so my current plan, I don't know if I stick with it, is I'm going to keep the beard until I'm 40, and then I'm going to like shave off 10 years.
Like, you've got such good genetics. I mean, it annoys me. It's annoyingly good. And now you're going great. That's just the highlight of my day so far. But I mean, because the rest of us like 29 and like losing our hair. So
yeah, I mean, it's creeping back in the day, though.
It is. I push it forward. But,
do a Donald Trump.
That is a man, isn't it? That's a conversation on its own, isn't it?
Let's push that one to the side for now.
Go past that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my one thing to say on Trump, and actually some of our leaders here in the UK as well, is just a reminder that actually character really matters.
Yeah.
Anyway, but let's keep moving.
I mean, and you know, the encouragement. I think, like you said, the other thing that I really want to see Christians, one of my visions is, and one of my hopes for the future is, that as Christians, we will be more honest. And what I mean by that is, before the podcast, obviously people don't know that, you said to me, how am I? And I said, truthfully, not great. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm not going to bore all my stuff out, but no, am I great? No, not really. You know, cost of living in the UK, particularly, it's incredible.
Yeah, no, everyone's feeling that.
Life gets us down.
Yeah.
You know, we're not immune to that as Christians. Things don't go our way. So I'm not down, but I'm not great, you know. But my vision for the future is that when we come to church and we say to somebody, are you okay? they feel able that they can actually cry on your shoulder.
Yeah.
They can sit there and tell you all their problems.
Yeah.
You know, because we're terrible for hiding behind, even as Christians, and somebody as honest as I am, I would like to think I'm very, very real. I hide behind a mask at church.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, I feel alright. I don't feel so great, sorry. What I would like is that we can get to the point where we don't need to wear a mask anymore, where we are in it together.
Yeah, no, I've heard enough people that say to me like something like, I can't come to church at the moment, so I just burst into tears.
Yeah.
I say to them, come and burst into tears with us.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we're not afraid of tears.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, speaking to something, a sense of actually, and I mean, we never say it, and I think you pointed that rightly, like church has got to be a place where you can be, I mean, like, I'm reading the Psalms at the moment, and some of them are brutal. They're like, gosh, everyone's abandoned me, and I'm all on my own, and my enemies are triumphing, and there's all this like, I mean, and there's some real anger, like God, would you crush their bones, and like these prayers, which I hope God didn't answer in the way David was wanting in those moments of pain.
Yeah.
But there's real pain and there's real sadness, and like I mean, there's a whole book in the Old Testament called Lamentations about lamenting, about sadness, about a sense of actually this isn't what we hoped.
Yeah, yeah.
And no, I think you're right. I mean, and Jesus never promised that it's all going to be jolly.
No.
He did promise, I'll always be with you.
Yeah.
That one we've always got, and that's for everyone. And there's also a journey in the life of Christians. It goes from mourning to dancing, from sorrow to joy.
Yeah.
But that's got to say that therefore there's a place for mourning.
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
place for sorrow. There's a place for grief and sadness and disappointment and frustration and all of that. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's something, you know, we talk about encouragement. When I lost mum,
Yeah.
you know, it was for about a month. Really, it was really bad for about a month and a half. You know, I remember speaking to Tom on the phone, and I said, "Why is God letting me suffer? Why is He letting me be so upset?" And he said, "Actually, I think God's asking you to mourn." He said, "I don't think He's asking you to move on to just yet."
Yeah.
You know, and we were talking about all this, and a friend rang me up once, and I'm no poet at all, but for some reason I sort of just come up with this thing. It's probably not poetic at all, but they rang me up and they said, "How are you?" And I said, "At the moment it's 6 o'clock. But in half an hour it's going to be dark, and the devil will come up to come and see me again." And that's truly how it felt.
Yeah.
There were things that I believed about myself that I've never believed. You know when won't go into too much graphic detail. When Mum was passed, I didn't think I'd be jumping on her chest that morning, you know, trying to bring her back. And there were things that I killed her. It was my fault.
Yeah.
You know, I hurt my foot, so I was able to get to the chemist for her. And because I didn't go to the chemist, my mum did. Let's not get this confused. My mum wanted everything done for her, right? And because I wouldn't go, she was on going, even though it was her stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, "Oh, once it was my fault. Because she didn't get that tablet that one day earlier."
Yeah, it's hard. Like you really do believe that stuff in those moments.
And I was waiting for a tap on the shoulder from the police. You know, even though I wasn't a carer or anything like that.
Yeah, and it wasn't your fault at all.
No, and it took me a good week to realise that nobody's going to tap me on the shoulder and say, "Can we have a quick word with you?"
Yeah.
But through all of that, I think the encouragement was that I remember the verse from the Bible where it talks about pain may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning?
Yeah.
And it's so true.
Yeah.
Or we talk about, one of my favourite things from the Bible is when it talks about no weapon forged against me shall prosper, for greater is He who is in me than he who is in the world. And I think we are all at times, this is one thing we all have in common, we are all going to suffer dark days where hell's throwing a kitchen sink at you, and you are on your backside, and you've got the hounds of hell coming through your throat.
Yeah.
The only thing I want people to remember is that no weapon forged against you will prosper.
Come on.
And I think you just need to remember that the pain, you might cry all night, but I promise you will smile again in the morning. And this is one thing that isn't spoken about enough in church. I think we don't, especially, you know, we don't talk so much about sometimes the spiritual battles that we go through. You know, And I'm not sure why. You might be able to enlighten me on that. Why we don't talk so much about that?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting observation. Yeah, what are the kind of tools to lean into during those dark moments? I mean, I preached a few months ago about that very passage you've been referencing, where David encouraged himself in the Lord.
Yeah.
I gave a sermon on that a couple of months ago, and it was actually fascinating. There was a huge response to it because actually we all face discouragement.
Yeah.
Every single person that we all face heaviness and darkness and pain, and what do we do with that? How we bring it to God. We recognise that He's with us, and we start to take encouragement from the truth of who He is. But no, you're right. I mean, it's a huge part of actually everyone's life, but every Christian's life as you're trying to kind of step forward with God. That there's challenge, and there's and there's hard things, and there's the devil literally trying to hold you back.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we talked a little bit about your story, Dino. That actually you weren't a Christian 3 years ago, and there's been this huge, amazing change, and now you're giving so much of your time and energy to serving Jesus and serving the kingdom. That of course the devil's going to want to knock you down, and he's going to want to just bash you in your points of weakness, and discourage you and make you think, oh yeah, like I'm a failure, I don't fit, this is rubbish, I should sack it in, because actually as you grow and grow into the man God's made you to be, you're going to have a huge impact, and that's a part of everyone's story. So maybe it's time, Dino, for a sermon series on overcoming overcoming the challenges. I mean, it's you touched on something great there actually about in those dark moments, like leaning on those scriptures, and that's a great one. Yeah. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Greater is He is with me than He is against me. And actually, I mean, that's a great thing. Just having, even if it's just a few scriptures that speak truth to you. That, okay, I'm going to hold on to these. I was away with some of my some Christian friends of mine a couple of years back, and we prayed for each other, and we asked God if there's anything He wanted to say to each other, like these words of prophecy, and a couple of them had some words for me, and so I wrote them down, and actually they felt really important. They were all about God bringing me to Swindon, and God establishing me, and God doing the work, and almost like a reminder that He's in charge and He's called me. And like my job is just to stay close and follow Him, and it felt so important, those words, that actually I've got my wife Kath to actually letter them on my cupboard in my office. So I'll just see again and again, I am the Lord your God. I've brought you to Swindon. I'm establishing you, and just to lean on the truth again and again. And often I'll sit there after I've read an email of someone complaining about something, or something's not gone as we hoped, or there's discouragement or questions. Oh, look at that. Oh no, actually, He is the Lord. Yeah. He's brought me here. He's establishing what's happening, and my job is to stay close and follow Him. Yeah.
I mean, and it's just like you said. I mean, you keep using the word encouragement, and it is encouraging. You know, there's a guy. Obviously, I'm not going to mention him by name. So I don't know if I've got his permission anyway. So I'm just going to. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Who's on an alpha table with me? You might know him. I'm about going too much detail, but he's a young guy, and you know, I'm trying to encourage him at the moment. You know, he's had a baby and whatnot. You know, and every now and then I'll reach out without pushing my agenda too much onto him. My agenda, not an agenda. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Well, pushing it too much on him. You know, because he reminds me very much of myself. 8 years ago. You know, it really does remind me of myself, and. You know, I think you need as much support as you can get. You know, I'm terrible. You know, I don't do it as much as I should, but I do reach out to him every now and then. I've spoken to him on the phone since Mum's been gone and stuff. You know. And he knows where I am if he needs me. You know? And I think, by no ways means am I a mentor at all. I mean, I'm not at that point in my life yet.
You definitely are, but keep going.
I think when we talk about encouraging, the other things that I want to encourage in life, in church especially, and generally in life, is tackling the problems that we have, you know, encouraging people from working class backgrounds, encouraging people from black and ethnic minorities, encouraging more women, you know, single mothers.
Yeah.
Because all of these things that we put on these people are our human failures. God doesn't see them. God doesn't see you're black, you're from a poor background, you've slept with 5 guys and another child. He doesn't see that. He just sees the person that he created and loves. And it seems that we sometimes put it there. And you know, other times I put on Facebook, I want to take church to what it should have always been about. Not about the money, not about the money, not about the image, but about the people and about what it means to be, you know, go back let's go back 1,000 years, because sometimes I get discouraged when I see St. Paul's in London and there are people literally dying on its steps of hunger. That really hurts my heart. Yeah. Because it's so wrong. Or I see some vicars having very kind, or because, I mean, obviously I'm not a vicar actually, but even as a Christian, we are obliged as Christians and obligated to help. Yeah. And if you don't, I question you. Not you.
Yeah, you know, people. Yeah.
I you know, and the sad reality is, I still see more atheists or agnostics do a lot more Christian things than I see Christians do, and that's not me slagging the Christian faith off. I'm one of, you know, and it's something that I want to encourage more Christians to more, you know, talk about when we listen to Scripture on Sunday, carrying it with us through the week, and not putting our Bible away. I'm guilty of doing that sometimes, of forgetting about my Bible or putting my own wants before somebody else's. I'm not perfect in any of this, you know, and I'm not trying to be controversial what I'm saying. I'm just trying to be honest in this, transparent as I can be. We can't pretend everything's rosy and dandy when it's not. But that's not just a church thing, that's a life thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you've talked about a lot of things there, you know. We've talked about like a sense of sort of representation and equality. We've talked about serving the poor. We've talked about living out our faith every day of the week. Yeah. And I'm basically with you on all of them, my friend. And yeah, I mean, my encouragement is really for all of us, with me and you, to say, God, how are you calling us to respond? Yeah. There's I mean, what does it look like? And I mean, I don't know, like, I mean, some friends of mine, they lead a church in Brighton, and they had on one of their first weeks, they had a homeless person who'd died on their church porch. Yeah. And I thought, gosh, this is like utterly heartbreaking. Yeah. What a tragic story. So for the last 10 years, every Saturday night they have a meal in their church for the street community. Yeah. And that's a part of their heart as a church. Yeah. And if you go to St. Peter's, you'll pick that up. I mean, and another friend of mine, their church in Bournemouth, they before they used to do Sunday morning services, they go around and pick up needles and various things that have been used for taking drugs. And so, as you can imagine, like the recovery community are at the heart of their church. They've had hundreds of people have come through their recovery courses as they're trying to sort of do church together. And I mean, for us here, it's been youth mentoring, it's been debt advice, and now Grow Baby, which is like a sort of food bank for young families, doing kind of practical provision of clothes and food and those bits, but also a place of community. And then there's also what I think is people's greatest need is for Jesus. I think that's people's greatest need now and forever, which is why for us we run after that. We run Alpha, and we try and be a church that kind of reaches out and loves people. But like for each of us personally, it is like, who are your neighbours? What are their stories? Do you know them? Do you care for them? How are you responding to the stuff around you as Jesus would have done? It's big for all of us.
And I mean, you know, I feel so passionately about it, you know. So, you know, another example was, you know, I was at a friend's house on Saturday watching Untitled Purify, and, you know, I can, again, I'm not going to mention names, but she's got difficulties in her life, you know. You know, sometimes the kids don't help out as much as they should, or whatever, you know. And I said, look, I can say something, I can help you out. If you need help, I'll help you. You know, you just need to pick up that phone.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
Even if it's putting a chest of drawers together, I'll calm down. That's not being, and again, that's not about being a Christian. That's not defining me as a Christian, but as a man as well, just as a man in general in society. And, you know, especially as a man of faith, if she can't come to me and ask me for help, and I can't, do you know what I mean, go there and help her, what's the point? What's the point in any of this? We might as well pack up and go now.
Yeah.
You know? And I get quite heated under the collar about it, because I just, you know, I suppose I still hold a lot of pain from my childhood from what I saw Christians doing then. And I don't ever remember them helping, but more sitting there in judgment of my family circumstances, which were dad drank, mum, we had no money, you know, there was time when mum wouldn't eat because dad drank, and she would eat, and if she did eat, it would be leftovers of the older kids. Thankfully, I didn't suffer as much as my older brother and sister did. We still had hard times with dad, but nowhere near to the level my brother Christian and Steve, brother and sister Christian and Steve had. You know, his brother was on the street at 15. My dad and brother didn't see eye to eye. You know, so I think I remember being a child, you know, dad dying and stuff, and mum asking for a bit of help for whoever she could get help from, paying for funeral, paying for whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't remember anyone ever helping her. And that was kind of why I turned away from church. So I can remember asking the church to help her, and they didn't really, you know, they gave her prayers, but there's only so much, in practicality, only so much a prayer's going to do, you know. Sometimes you need physical help, and the same we said, isn't it? When we talk about us Christians, sometimes we're guilty of praying to God, asking for help, when actually, if we look past our nose, the help's there. We just refuse to see it, you know. And I know Mum used to say that as well. That actually help would in the end, but at some point in the future, I want to get to the point where I don't think badly of. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
absolutely, Dean. I mean, it's a really like heartbreaking and sobering story of your experience. And no, you're absolutely speaking like the Jesus language. This is the call for all of us. Like what you see in Jesus is the most generous life ever lived.
Yeah.
That he was not only perfect, never did anything wrong, sinless. He then gave his whole life. He died on a cross, humiliation for you and me. And if we're following that Jesus, then we're invited to live a much more generous life than we do. But I mean particularly here in Europe and America and in the West, like our lives are every year increasingly individualistic. It's about me, and it's tricky when that becomes our faith. Because actually, yes, absolutely, you need a personal relationship with God, and that's wonderful, and you need to do what He's called you to do, but we're called to live lives that are generous. We're called to live lives that are loving. We're called to live lives that make a difference to those around us. Jesus talks about us being salt and light, and like salt makes a difference. Salt brings flavour. Like you get those salt and shake crisps, and like if you have them without the salt, though, it's just like a bit of oily nothing. Whereas with salt, they're so delicious. And I mean, they didn't have crisps in the Middle East 2,000 years ago, but no, I love everything you just said there, you know, like that's the call for us as Christians, and it's great that we have programs and Sundays and all that stuff in place, And that's so for us at Pattern Church, we do most of our organised stuff on Sundays and Wednesdays. And part of the heart of that is because I don't want people to spend so much time being at church that they can't be the church. And when I say be the church, I mean the exact stuff you're talking about. I mean helping your neighbour put a flat pack together. I mean helping out the Dinos and the Pats when they're having a tough time. I mean being involved in your local schools. I mean loving people. I mean helping out with refugees and guys who are having a tough time. And mentoring and coming alongside guys who are hurting. And building relationships. That's like when I think of the church.
That's what
I don't think of buildings. I mean we're privileged. We've got a lovely building, but and it's great to have a home, a place to do that from. But when I think of the church, it's everyone who's following Jesus everywhere God's placed them. When I got ordained, I got my wife Kath you have to wear this like big scarf. It's called a stole, and I got my wife to paint it for me, and it's the word joy, because I'm all about joy. But it has like a picture of like an old city, and there's these lights in various parts of the city, and that's representing God's people, you and me, who are bringing joy and life. And but it looks like the very stuff we're talking about. Like people like you and me actually not just doing our thing, but looking around us and seeing how we can serve and help and love and make a difference.
I mean that's to me is so much what it's so much what it's about. It's and that's taken me 3 years to come to that point now. I was so absorbed by the building and everything else that actually I probably put the church building before actually the worship. And I mean, I've said it before, haven't I, about sometimes people make the church the idol, not God. And it's like I was watching Mike Pilavarchi the other day, and he's proper eccentric.
I love
like
Mike.
He's out there, isn't he?
Love him.
He's brilliant, and he was talking about, he was laughing at his mates who've all got relationships, right? And he's there going, how you got to be home at a certain time, how you got to do this, look at me, I'm single. And he turned around and went, actually, he's idolising being single.
Yeah.
And I thought, at the time, I thought, you idiot, what are you on about? And then I stopped to think about it, I thought, you are literally, you are idolising it. And, because for our workout, he's obviously never been married or anything, has he? And, he's a great guy. For anyone that's listening, I recommend Mike Pilavarchi. He's
brilliant.
Funny, and he's so funny as well.
Yeah, no, I love Mike. He's the thing about Mike. Yeah, he's one of the guys I looked to when because actually, I mean, he talked about idolising and like in the kind of broader world for a long time. Although that shifted a bit more to sort of like finding your own self idea. But the idea of finding that one partner, that one marriage, that one happy fairy tale ending has been everything. Yeah, Mike's been this amazing single guy whose like influence is huge. So I used to work at a big church in London, and I remember people in the leadership team were all sort of sharing their stories, and so many of them, the moment where their faith became real for them as a teenager was at Soul Survivor, which is what Mike ran. And like all these guys who are now leading churches around the country, like, it was actually Mike's ministry of Mike, who didn't spend his whole life comparing, or he just cracked on with what God was calling him to do.
I mean, because he's just a great guy. He actually reminds me a lot of my old TA from school. There's just big, I mean, again, my TA was Italian heritage, right? This big, broad, in a kind of way, kind of out of shape, curly hair, right? And, obviously that's not being unkind. I think that's something he would say himself, that he's this very eccentric Greek, isn't he?
Yeah.
Greek heritage.
Yeah.
And, you sort of look at him and you think he's a bloke down the pub. Like, the bloke saying, he looks like a bloke who'd say inappropriate things at the pub. He's so normal, he doesn't try to dress up, or he's usually, I watched one where he's wearing a poncho.
He often wears a poncho.
I mean, what a look.
It's a strong look.
Brave, but he doesn't try to dress himself up, he doesn't physically, he is who he is.
Yeah,
and that's what I love.
I mean, with Mike, the main thing is Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, he's a brilliant example of that. Jesus is the main thing. And so, and that's the invitation for all of us. Like, imagine what Jesus could do with your life if you make him the main thing.
Yeah.
You say, I'm going to follow you, whatever. Like, he can do some amazing things with you.
Yeah. And You're right. I think when you forget a lot of the nonsense as well, like, do you remember when I first came to church? I'd always been in a shirt and trousers. Do you remember?
Always raising the level, Dino,
Right.
of there'd be me in my t-shirt and hoodie,
I remember you saying that.
and Dino would turn up. He's like, "Oh, guys, brilliant! Someone's raising the smart level." This is a. I had to remind you that this isn't one of those clubs where you can't wear trainers.
No,
this is,
different kind of club. but as I mean,
maybe it's because a few times you just come from the club.
do you know what? It's scarily true.
You're looking so sharp. Like, yeah, I got dressed out 12 hours ago.
Yeah, I know. We was talking about this when I done a talk at the Well. We talked about the first time I met Paul, and that was actually a true story. That I remember, I come straight from a nightclub. I'd gone out all night, and this when I was very just become a Christian, and I was really hungover, and I met Paul, and I remember thinking, look at him, looking at me, thinking, this man smiles too much. and because the problem is, I was still suspicious of Christians.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, what's his agenda? What's he trying to push on me here? And I remember I walked through and I was so angry. I remember my veins in my arms were pulsating. And I thought, you
just because he smiled at you.
Yeah. And like, I remember thinking, I hate him. And then because I was going to get baptised, didn't I? And and I started doing the Bible studies with you in town, overlooking the town centre.
At the crossing.
That's it.
That's
and
right.
then you invited Paul, and I thought, like, and I remember saying to Kirsten, I was like, I'm not doing it. Paul's there. Obviously, I go to Paul's church now, and I love Paul to bits. Just because he might watch, other than what he called me yesterday, just to put that out there. But I mean, it was nothing that bad. But you know, how wrong I got it. You know, and I don't know why I went off on that. I think it was trying to defend myself from the club when Joel just threw it out there.
Anyway, so there's Dino looking smart. Yeah, I mean, I've actually got quite a vivid memory, Dino, the first time you walked into church, because we were only a few weeks into Alpha.
Yeah.
And I mean, I loved having you in our group at Alpha, but I mean, you were giving it all the usual stuff, you know, like the Bible's covered in blood, and I'm a big fan of aliens and all this stuff, and you come in and out of the sessions, you'd be there for a bit, and you go out and have a break and come back, and I was like, I really hope this guy stays. I really hope I hope we can journey with him, and then you turned up, and it was only like week 4 or 5 of Alpha, and you came to Sunday morning when we were still meeting at the platform before our building was ready, and in came Dino. Oh gosh, there he is. He comes and sits at the back, and it was just a few minutes before service started, so I kindly just sort of say hi, and then we started. It's like, gosh, he's actually come. And then that day we had a church picnic barbecue at Coat Water, so he went and got your son, and we you were there for the whole day and met with people, and then now we can't get rid of you.
I know.
And
I know.
it's just actually, I mean, it is amazing looking at what Jesus has done in your life, and how you've grown, and how you've chosen him again and again, even when there's been moments it's been hard and there's been challenge in that, and obviously we've talked about navigating your mum passing away.
Yeah.
But in all of that, you're saying, no, actually, I'm going to put Jesus right at the centre.
Yeah, I mean, in going back to the Alpha, actually, I didn't know you were the vicar. I remember coming onto this Alpha table, and it was a pretty good looking table. There was, you know what I mean, everyone's pretty handsome and pretty good looking. I thought, oh, this is alright. Like everyone's, you know what I mean, everyone's like friendly and handsome and right. And then, yeah, me and Cor turned up, and I remember I was talking, and yeah, I remember all the things I said. Like, it's for the like murder and covered in blood and anything I could say to try and be offensive, really. But you know, I don't ever recommend someone coming to. So I was talking to Dave last night, and I said I wouldn't recommend my journey into faith the same way as for somebody else. So I don't feel like I'll come under the radar. Do you know what I mean? Like when I come to faith, I've done the Alpha, then I went straight into discipleship,
Yeah.
And then before I was doing videos for you guys, then I done a couple of talks, and it was like there was no under the radar for me. Like that's how it feels for me anyway. It didn't feel like I got that knew it was like I was in. It wasn't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I go back now, I probably wouldn't have done that discipleship year, that first year.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think the discipleship year was brilliant for you because it meant every week you were thinking about Jesus with some people and reading the Bible together, but also making great friends. Yeah. Obviously, like Dave, now you live with, and actually a number of guys at the Well are close friends from, and Kirsten and Bob, close friends from that year. Yeah. I mean, I think it was great for you, but I mean, as you say, well, one straightforward, and there was, and you weren't always so keen to come early on a Sunday, and there was those bits as well, and there's tension there, but I think just God used all of it, and actually, like the thing that discipleship year I think did, it meant actually I know that there's like an anchor, there's like a peg, there's a sense of commitment, and actually when you've got that sense of commitment and saying actually I'm doing this, then we're like giving space for God. It's like, it's almost like you had in your diary like a date with God to say, okay, I'm going to come and I'm going to, and in some weeks you're having a tricky time. But other weeks you came on, I'm here, I'm ready to learn, ready to grow, and I don't know. I mean, actually, like for lots of people that did the discipleship year, it was. Actually, it really helped in those initial stages. There's something consistent. There's people who care for me. There's a space to just pray and read the Bible and ask questions, and but also like you're quite loud. You're quite like, I don't think you've ever gone under any radar anywhere ever.
No. You know, a boss once famously said to me, "You're like a worker." He said, "You're like a workhorse or like an Alberta bike." He said, "You take a few kicks to get started, but once you go and you're fine." He said, "But I'm always walking 2 foot behind, shoveling stuff up behind you." That was true in my old job. That was very true. He's always 2 foot behind having to shovel stuff, right? But not so much now. I'm not as chaotic as I once was.
No, not chaotic, but you're fun. You're a personality. You're magnetic, and you want to be in with things, and that's part of how God's made you.
I mean, I am just going to confirm, I did used to be chaotic. I used to be a right nightmare, you know. But I think.
But God's working on you bit by bit.
I know. I mean, like you said, we noticed the Facebook stuff earlier. We'll talk about that. You know, before I'm still guilty with it sometimes, so I get really angry. I don't think I'm doing it. I am thinking more now. But like before, it'd be like, "Oh, you f this," or you know. And it's like that Matt Lane, who's still my mate, still my mentor. I don't want that to ever change. For as long as he's happy, I'm happy. We spoke about this on the phone the other week.
No, that's brilliant.
You know, I don't necessarily change myself, but he says in 3 years how far you've come.
Absolutely.
It's like such a different person. But then you know, like I said, you know, it's hard to see it in yourself. But our values change as well.
Absolutely.
As we get older, you know, what I valued at 26. So 26, 27? 3 years ago, so it must have been 26, yeah. You know, what I valued then is obviously very different to what I value now.
Yeah.
You know, that how we changes. So I don't think I knew who I really was then. You know, a lot of my early 20s up to that point, I don't think I knew who I was. I'd rather buy stuff or have what looked great to make me look fantastic. No, I don't care, you know, what I've got, or it's about who I am as a person. What legacy am I going to leave behind when I'm gone? You know, it's, do I want to be remembered? I do want to be remembered, I'm not going to lie, and that's the nature of the ego. I want to be remembered long after I'm gone. I'd like to be remembered in 1,000 years' time. I'm not going to sit there and lie and say I don't. I do, right? But what do I want people to remember me, my grandkids to remember me for? Do I want them to remember me as the guy who had everything, or the guy who stood for the right thing, and sometimes put his foot in it, even when it was right, even when it was wrong, still stood for what he believed to be right, you know? I think being sometimes just be brave. You know, if we remember at the beginning of the pandemic, do you remember on discipleship year? I often bring this up with Paul. When I sat there and said this is going to get really bad, and I was freaking out, and everyone was going, nah, you're weird. And I was like, no, listen to me. You know, because I was watching what's going on in the rest of the world. And I think be encouraging yourself in the fact that if you truly believe something, stand by it. It's probably, what I just used is probably a really bad point, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That if it feels right in your heart, it's probably the right thing. You know, given depending on circumstances. You know, if you're seeing somebody getting mugged, and it's obviously the right thing to do is to go over and help.
Yep.
So I think just be encouraging yourself, like just to echo everything that we've said.
Yeah, and also to be brave.
Yeah.
Like doing courageous things, the big and the small, takes bravery.
Yeah.
And like a number of times in the scripture, there's that encouragement: be bold, be brave, be courageous. And that's something that the Holy Spirit helps with in our lives. But I remember I think about sometimes if you think about what you'd be doing with your life if you were 10 times braver. Just like think about that for a moment. Okay, what would I be doing if I was 10 times braver? What would I be doing with my time, with my friendships, and what steps would I be taking? What would I be starting? Where would I be found? What are the sort of changes and shifts that I'd make if I was me, where I am, but 10 times braver? And then actually to think, okay, well, the gap between my life now and that life is actually what fear's robbing me of.
Yeah.
And to say, okay, what of that is God actually calling me to do? And then to be brave with that, to say, God, help me to take those steps.
Yeah.
And just actually one other thing on encouragement before you wrap it up, Dino. And we talked about a lot of us being encouraged.
Yeah.
But another key part of encouragement, especially in the church, is each other as gifts. Paul writes, encourage one another and build one another up.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important. Like we've talked about a few different dreams for the church and what we want to be about. But one of my other dreams for the church is that the church is the most encouraging place in the world. Yeah. If you come, someone's going to just speak encouragement over you, because like you were talking about how we can judge various people, but God doesn't see it that way. I think you're absolutely right. But when you become a Christian, like you don't just have your own wisdom, you have God's wisdom too. Yeah. And so you can actually see the gold that God's placed inside of people. And I mean, I just wonder, like if all the people listening along, like, took a moment this week to think about someone they want to encourage and drop them a text or send them a DM or even when they saw them, just said, actually, I really so appreciate this about you. Yeah. Like Dino, I really appreciate your humour. You make me laugh every time I see you. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with you in our whole friendship where we haven't laughed.
No,
that's a gift you have, and that's such a blessing to me.
Yeah.
And I love, Dino, your passion and your fire. And I love what you've done with this podcast. You had this idea and you said, no, actually, let's try and get some conversations to help people outside the church to hear about what faith looks like in people's lives. I love how you're doing that. Well, and I love, Dino, I love your passion to be a great dad to Lewis. Yeah. I see that and I just think, come on, that's brilliant. Yeah. There's so much gold that God's placed inside of you. And imagine if actually the church was just the most encouraging place. Someone thought, I'm feeling down, I want encouragement. I'm going to go to church because someone's going to say something encouraging. Yeah. Wouldn't that be great?
It would, yeah. I mean,
and with all these things, these changes we talked about, it's got to start with you and me. Yeah. And like individually, okay. So who can I encourage this week? Yeah. Like I'm encouraged by God and by people. So who can I encourage? Who can I come alongside? Because like people are facing stuff. Everyone's facing stuff, real stuff. Yeah. And we talked about some of it already. But like life has stuff. And there's enough things that are going to knock us down already. What if we were the ones who are encouraged?
To build back up again.
Yeah. What if we sent someone a postcard? Like we talked about what I hear in Matt Lane is. Yeah. Why don't you write him a postcard today? Yeah. So send it to his new house and just say, Matt, you are a gift from God to me. Your mentoring and encouragement has shaped me into the man. Yeah. Thank you for being you. Just send him that, that'll make his day.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. And that's the thing, you know, it's also, you know, like you said, it's when you're talking about, you know, encouraging and just building people up, you know, it was one thing that I really struggled with the most when I went to church. I was horrible at taking compliments, or, you know, it was like, it's just quickly before we wrap up. It's something I was on stage yesterday. I remember being on the alpha table. I can't remember, it was somebody on the alpha table said, "You'll make a really good evangelist because you make a very good argument," right? And I was thinking, hold on a minute, this is like my 5th week, 6th week. I don't even know what an evangelist is, right? And now in quotations mark, I suppose I'm trying to be. And I just remember thinking, and these guys were like, you're like full of compliments. They're like, you know, great, you can talk well and stuff like that. And you can engage with people, you can make people feel comfortable. And I was like, what are these people, man? Like, what are they doing? Like, I'm used to it now. If I don't get it, I sulk now. I sulk. That's why I think I need to come back home again. I need to come back to Pan. I get it more here than I do everywhere else. So I'm totally joking, by the way.
Yeah, and because the thinking is, like from the Bible, tells in Genesis that everyone's made in the image of God.
Yeah.
So every person you meet is made, actually has a particular part of God and his character that's placed inside him. Now sometimes we don't do a great job of showing it, but it's there. It's part of God, his creativity, his generosity, his order that he brings. That's not that I do, but lots of people do that really well. And the love that he has, and the peace that he has, and the patience that God has, and that's all. The creativity, that's all, like, different people reflect that, and it's absolutely our job to say, yeah, God's placed that in you. Yeah.
And I mean, I love that. I've got one last question.
Okay, let's do it.
And it's going to be the one question that most Christians don't like.
Hit me.
What do you want your legacy to be when you're gone?
What do I want my legacy to be? What I'd love people to say, is that I followed Jesus faithfully. And I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like. Yeah. Like for now, I'm utterly convinced that I'm called to this place, to this church, to plant churches, to do what God's called us to play. Like, I don't need to rehearse the pattern church vision, but you know what we're about. Like 1,000 baptisms, an army of young people that making a difference in social issues, inviting people into family service with them. That's what I'm called to in the here and now. Yeah. And it's the big stuff, but it's also the small stuff. Yeah. Like, Kath and I married 13 years, and we're running after 50. Yeah. A guy, Mark Batterson, he's an author, and he leads a church in Washington. He talks about, I want to be respected the most by the people who love me the best. Yeah. And sometimes you can find people who are publicly really great, but for their people who are close to them, their close friends, or if they've got family, to them they're not so great. And actually I want my faith, and we talked about living out in the small stuff. I want to follow Jesus well in the small stuff, and I want to follow him well in the big stuff. And we talked that sometimes that's going to have a cost to it. Like sometimes that's going to be just wonderful and joyful the whole time. Other times it's going to take a cost because it's going to be different to what culture says, different to what people says. But I'd love people to say that about me, and that would be a huge privilege if they said actually he followed Jesus faithfully, and that's consistently over however many years God gives me on the planet to faithfully follow him. And there's also something for me about kind of creativity and encouraging people. They're parts of who God's made me to be, and I need to do those well to be following him. But that's the one at the heart. And maybe also something about like I take God very seriously, but I don't take myself all that seriously.
I'm with you.
I've got a few guidelines about who God is and him at the centre. But the rest of the stuff, I don't know. We're doing our best here, but but it's I'm not that big a deal, and and so it's those kind of things. But the big one I think is as I said at the start, like if I get to the end of this, and this I don't want to start a whole new topic, but you see people who've done great stuff, but there's been just chinks in their armour where the whole thing's collapsed. And I'd love it if I can just, in every part of my life, follow him faithfully.
Oh man, that's brilliant. I knew I was going to get a good answer out of you.
Sorry, mate?
I knew I was going to get a good answer out of you.
Oh, it's a bit rambling, like all my answers.
No, it's all good, mate. I ramble all the time, so don't worry. But no, it's all good. But thank you, Joel. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Oh, a treat to see you, my friend.
Cheers, mate.